Welcome to Blaise the Trail Podcast, bringing you authentic and vulnerable stories that will inspire you to breathe fire on this world and become your own hero. Here's your host, Blaise Hunter.
Hello, welcome to my podcast. This is the inaugural episode of Blaise the Trail, and I'm so excited to launch this platform. I'm Blaise Hunter, and for so long, I didn't have a voice. And then one day, 5 years ago, I decided I wanted to make my voice heard. So each day, I take steps towards peeling back those layers, taking off the masks, and allowing the real me to be unveiled. That girl is very raw, imperfect, and brave. She became her own hero. As I speak before you today, I'm using my voice to take up my rightful space in the world and allow it to heal rather than to hurt, and inspire others to do the same. So why a podcast? Well, because I have learned a lot of lessons over the years, and I have some serious insights and value to share with the world. So in this episode, you are going to hear a little bit of my backstory and how we can use our own vulnerability as our superpower and learn how to navigate through our struggles. So this first episode is called When We Get Lost, Let's Go to the MAPP. I have been to hell and back so many times throughout my life, and instead of staying in that dark, lonely, depressive space, I leaned into the pain. I decided my hell was also the key to my healing and ultimately my purpose. So as I was walking through my version of hell, I had a choice to make. I decided to keep going. And I went and got the keys to unlock the shackles that were holding me back so I could help other women and men break out of the prisons they are living in. This is my mission, to lead a mental and emotional jailbreak all over the world so people can know their worth and rise up to be the hero of their lives and breathe fire on this world. I know everyone goes through their own type of hell. We all have hardships. We need to survive. But where do we learn how to navigate through them? Unfortunately, there isn't one general manual to go to. It would be nice, right? But that's not reality. We all have different struggles though, right? So how could one magic universal map or manual fit? Well, it can. I feel the integrity of this podcast would be compromised if I didn't lead by example and show you my vulnerability and my journey, the highs and the lows. I don't want this to be a platform of me just telling the listener what to do. I want to show you by how I live. I want to be the example of where we can learn from of my fails and how we can apply that and my wins to how we can succeed in life. And how we can choose to push through those struggles and just be real about them. I want to show you that. I want to show you the whole spectrum of my life, not just what I'm choosing to show the public. Many of you know I'm a published author and international speaker. I'm a fertility expert and a life coach. I have shared my raw truths in my book, Heroine. I have admitted my flaws and highlighted the physical and emotional traumas of losing 3 babies from horrific miscarriages. I have spoken out about my insecurities and how I've hated myself my entire life. I was an emotional cutter, and that's all in my book. But the funny thing about vulnerability is that once you go down that rabbit hole and commit to the vulnerability, path, you actually have to keep challenging yourself to find that space again and again. Vulnerability isn't about admitting something one time and going back to masking it up. It's actually about continually looking for those hidden areas that are below the surface, and we need to expose them by being vulnerable. So I'm committing to hold the vulnerability line, so to speak, on this podcast so we can blaze the trail on being raw and real every single day. It's truth time for me right now. Some things that I have barely mentioned before, and when I did, it was generally in a place I just felt safe. is I lost my childhood home in my grade 12 year at the age of 17 due to a fire. My entire house burned to the ground. I didn't understand the toll that ordeal took on me until way later on in life. I had lost the structure of my life in my teenage years. I no longer felt safe in my environment, and I didn't know how to process that loss. So I internalized it at 17. A few years later, my dad went through his own dark time and struggled with depression. He didn't have anywhere to turn to, so he tried to run from his pain. He actually faked his own death and thought no one would even miss him. Miraculously, he returned home a little while later, but he did what we all do, or all tend to do, when we want to protect ourselves. Instead of focusing on the wound to discover the light and to heal, we armor it up. So my family has never actually spoken about it again. And we just sort of swept that topic and that ordeal under the carpet and ignored it. But pretending there is no problem never solves the problem. It just festers below the surface. And it will come out and present in different areas of your life, whether it's health or conflict or issues with your family or whatever. One day it will surface. I have only shared those experiences a couple of times publicly. And I knew I had to, because the very thought of sharing those stories sends me into a sympathetic nervous system overload, where I want to just flee from the situation and never talk about it. And I get a racing heart. I have anxiety and worry about the fallout of admitting these things and what my family might say and what will people think of me. So when my body and my mind revolt against me in a situation like that, and I have such a physical response of fear, I have to reconcile that. I have to ask, am I protecting myself from danger? Because that's what fear is. It's there to protect us, but it actually can go the other way and harm us. Or we have to ask the question, am I causing myself more harm by not pushing through that fear? That is a question we should always ask ourselves when we find we're in that fight, flight, or freeze mode. I have been dealing with a rare autoimmune disease for 14 years, where your body physically attacks itself. It's so confused in the communication of your body. I know it wasn't just one thing that caused this issue, because multiple factors contribute to dis-ease. But I definitely believe trauma weakens the body and the immune system. Different emotions govern various organs. And if you overload one organ with too much stress and too much emotions, and you never process it or deal with it, those emotions and stress will spill over, and your body will signal to you something is drastically wrong within. 6 years ago, I walked into a few different alternative health practitioners' offices, and all of them actually said the exact same thing. It was just insane. They don't know each other. They're not related. 3 different entities, and they all said the same thing. You're dealing with a lung issue, then you're really dealing with a grief issue. I was stunned. My jaw literally hit the floor. How can this be? What? How has no one ever said this to me? No one ever made that link. Why do we always just treat the symptom? I mean, my past and my emotional status has nothing to do with my physical health, right? Wrong. We are mind, body, and soul. It's all connected. And where it presents may not be where the source of the problem is. We always need to follow the roadmap of clues and discover the root cause so we can uproot the problem entirely and go on living a healthier and freer life. After this revelation, I dove headfirst into dealing with my grief. Those tears and that heartache had literally drowned my lungs, where they could no longer function properly anymore. I couldn't breathe. So I had no choice. I had to either lean into the pain of what caused the grief or die. and I didn't want to die. I still don't want to die. That's why I'm pursuing this with such vigorous passion, is that I have a girl, a daughter, and I have a husband to live for, and I have my own life to live for and fight for. So we examined those wounds for the first time in my life. And it really is the key to healing. Every day, I starve my disease by taking steps to process my feelings instead of masking them. Every day, I walk out my healing by consciously doing things and saying things that help me and not hurt me. I became the change I wanted to see. Don't get me wrong. I still mess up. I fall in total amazing, disastrous proportions. I mess up, but I'm committed to learn. Now I don't internalize my failures. Now I don't beat myself up. I say, okay, clearly missed it on that point. How can I learn from them? How can I do better next time? And that's the key to not attacking yourself. When I look at all these scenarios and things I had to face and deal with, I realized there was a general map we could use to help guide us. I had to tailor it for each situation, but the general rule applied to everything I needed to do and get through. So I developed a map that we can all apply to our own situations. This is going to change your life, I swear. I think we all have the potential to be our own hero, but I think life deals us blows throughout our lives, and we get knocked down by some strong winds. And then we can feel weary. We can lose our passion and our energy, and we're just exhausted from surviving, and we feel lost in the maze of life. Well, what do we normally do when we get lost? We Google Maps that stuff, right? We go to the map. But if that's the go-to when we are lost, then why aren't we applying a map to the difficult situations we need to navigate through our lives and help us get us out? Once I worked through some major obstacles in my life, I noticed a pattern. Yes, I did have to tailor it for each problem and difficulty I was going through, but the general basis was always the same. And that became my roadmap. And I've also applied this map for my coaching clients. It's such an amazing tool to add to your toolbox when working out a problem in your life. And I'm going to share it with you right now because I truly believe in adding value to the world and being a go-giver. And I want to pose questions to you and to myself, and I'll answer them honestly. The show is about learning how to have tough conversations with ourselves, learning how to communicate with our mind, heart, and gut, as well as communicate with others. So the map that I've developed is actually an acronym spelled MAPP. M is for identifying and removing the masks. A is to accept and embrace. P is for infusing passion and love. And the last P is for changing the perception, not the image. So let's dive in further into this map this week. Masks. We all wear them. They are different for all of us, but every single person in the world applies mask after mask in our daily lives in order to feel strong, confident, or even to protect ourselves. So what are you using as a mask today? Have you even asked that question of yourself ever? I'm a life coach, and I've worked deeply on removing my armor, but I'm still human. I still apply masks. I still have things I use to cope and protect myself. And let me be clear, most of the things we do use to hide behind or use as masks aren't necessarily bad for us. It is the why. So the first thing to do is take note of is what is your mask today and what is the reason behind it. We need to go deeper and discover, why am I doing that? What does that say about me? What can I learn about me to be reflective and transform and grow as a person and become the best version of ourselves? Some of my own masks, I'll admit right here, one of them was eyeliner. Can you believe it? Like, most people are probably listening right now and be like, eyeliner, that's so random. Yes, black eyeliner. I could not leave my house anywhere without eyeliner. I could go without other makeup, but I needed that. I literally didn't feel like I was good enough, pretty enough to show my real face to the world. So I put a little bit of eyeliner on to feel like I could be seen. And it's so interesting when I started diving into masks and going out without eyeliner, with challenging myself, I couldn't believe how difficult it was to actually do that. I thought, no problem, it's just makeup. Nuh-uh. It was like I was codependent on eyeliner to make me feel good enough and make me feel pretty. And maybe also it was a distraction. Like people will look at the eyeliner and not really into my eyes and into what was in my soul. And I wanted to mask that because I was really sad inside and a mess. So I put stuff out there so people wouldn't see the real thing that was going on. And it was just such a freedom to be able to leave the house with nothing, naked face, with just me. And eyeliner isn't bad. I still use eyeliner all the time. But now that I've worked through that mask, I can go with or without it. And that's something to remember. If you're not good enough without it, you'll never be good enough with it. That's always something to wonder and ask yourself about the masks you're using. Clothes is another good one. How many of us use clothes to conceal our flaws and not let people see what we think is an imperfection with us? I definitely use clothes to conceal my muffin top or cover my bum or accentuate something and distract from another. I would go crazy cleaning my house. This is another one. The house. When people came over, I was like going crazy trying to stuff everything away and clean it up because I didn't want anyone to judge me of how my house looked. And I wanted them to think that I had a clean home. But that was a mask. To show a clean house on the surface and to distract from the mess in my own house, in my soul. Crazy, hey? But I really did work through all of that. It's been an amazing process. But now I've got to dig deeper to know what I use now, because we've dealt with, those big glaring ones that we can obviously see right off the top. But once you deal with those, it does get more difficult going deeper because they're smaller and they're harder to detect, and you've got to be more honest with yourself. And I'll admit right now, since becoming a life coach and a public figure, I've even used that title as a mask, because how can a life coach mess up and flip out in a day? How can a life coach, lose control of her emotions or have a massive mistake in their life? Well, the answer is we're all human. Of course a life coach can do that. Everyone is going to mess up. We're all going to fall and fail at times. That's actually a good thing, because that's where the magic happens. That's where you learn and grow as a person. It's so amazing. You do want pain and difficulty and mess up in your life. That's how you grow. The key is to know when you did go wrong. And so you can learn from that and apply it to what you have learned for the next time you're faced with things and situations. It's all about being reflective. I encourage you today to write down what you do when you get angry. What's your reaction? What do you do? Do you lash out to deflect from admitting that you're flawed or in the wrong? Do you use fear as a mask to never get hurt or to try something and your fear of failure, so you stay frozen? You don't do anything. What is the go-to when you have a bad day? Like, what do you do to cope or release? What do you use to numb the pain, physical or emotional? Once we can learn what our masks are, then we can challenge ourselves to remove the layers and expose what's really going on inside, so therefore we can grow and we can help each other grow, because we're not showing some facade, this perfection. We're showing reality and helping humanity grow and be real in life. Moving on to the accepting and the embracing part of the MAPP, when you identify and remove the masks, now we need to learn to be okay with this new, raw, and real part of ourselves. And speaking from my own experience, when you remove those masks, you often don't even recognize that person because you have never seen her before. You have worked so hard on hiding yourself and on the mask that you've never actually seen the real you. And this is something to remember. Never work harder on the mask than on your soul. If you are spending the majority of your money, your time, and your energy on just the shell, the mask, the armor, the superficial, you are never going to see inner transformation because you've never invested on the inner self. So the challenge is to just accept who you are as you are and where you are learning and going in this very moment, and accept the mess, the flaws and the fear, and just sit in the mess for a while and get to know who that imperfect person is staring back at you in the mirror. Often our stress and our worries come from the mere frustration that we can't change it. Well, maybe it's not about changing it. Maybe it's about learning how to accept it. Now, the first P in the MAPP is all about adding passion and love for yourself and your life. So when we work on removing the masks and accepting ourselves and the situations in our lives, often we get stuck there because we feel like we did it. I have accepted myself. I'm all good. I've arrived. But that's not where our journey ends. We need to continue to push further. There's so much more for our lives than just acceptance and mediocrity. We need to get passionate about who we are, our life, what our purpose is, and where we are going. We need to get hungry for the pursuit of passion. We need to fall in love with ourselves and our lives again. Benjamin Franklin once said, most people die at 25 and don't get buried until 75. That really has stuck with me. I don't want to walk around empty and just going through the motions. I don't want to just survive my life. I want to thrive in it. What can you do to get your appetite back, to inject more dreams and really be pregnant with your dreams again? Have you aborted them because of hardships and disappointments? Get expectancy again. Expect your life to have a destiny and a purpose. You're here for a reason. Have you ever noticed the whole world is on a diet? I think when we diet physically so much for so long, it bleeds into emotional dieting. Let's challenge ourselves to get off the point plan and really taste life again with all of our senses and indulge our appetites. And the final stop on the MAPP is change the perception, not the image. So many times we can't change the hardships or situations we are going through, but we can always change how we look at them. We can always ask the question, what can I learn from this? And how can I be better tomorrow? I have had bouts of conflict with people over the years. I've had unfair setbacks and disappointments. And it's easy to sit there and have a pity party and be the victim and say, why me? Why is this happening to me? Or we can change our filter on how we're viewing it and use this new perspective to help us grow, transform, and to cope. It's all in how we look at things. We often take a picture on our phones and then edit it, add a filter here and there to make it better, make it more appealing to our eye. Why aren't we doing that with our internal lenses? Let's experiment with swapping out those filters. Or when we're facing conflict, we tend to make up a story in our heads so our brains can process the situation and protect us. But for me, many times the story I tell myself is completely off base and wrong. And I'm working on seeing an alternative reason or a narrative behind it. Let's leave open the possibility for a different narrative, that maybe it's not the one our brain has made up. Maybe the real reason isn't what we think. Ask yourself those tough questions and give yourself honest answers. We will all get lost in the maze of life from time to time. But if you follow the MAPP, I promise you, you will always find your way back to being the hero of your life. So let's recap the MAPP, shall we? Identify and remove the masks. Accept and embrace the mess. Infuse passion and love for your life again, and change the perception, not the image. That's it for this week's episode. Challenge yourself to be vulnerable and take off the armor. Map your life out, and let's breathe fire together. Thanks for listening. I'm Blaise Hunter.
You've been listening to Blaise the Trail with Blaise Hunter. To learn more about how you can breathe fire and unleash the hero within, or to listen to past episodes, visit blaisehunter.com.